Good morning, you guys. It's your boy Bill Mahari here, represent Mahari Nation's sports podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the entire basketball community. If you want more basketball content, tune in to Basketball Conversations every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. This is where we discuss basketball-related topics, news, debates, and everything else in the world of basketball. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get all the latest notifications when I start dropping videos and live streams. And please spread the word about the channel as well. So this is not going to be a basketball video. It's going to be a little bit more of my overall political side of things. I'm not a huge political guy at all. You know, I lean to a lot of other brothers out there for a lot of their political analysis and stuff like that. But I had a chance to listen to Two Raw's video on Patreon. I highly recommend for everybody who's subscribed to me to go subscribe to Two Raw for TV on Patreon. Fabulous content and raw and uncut as he is. You know what I mean? It's only $2 a month. I'm one of the current subscribers there. I'm telling you, it's worth it. All right. But he had a video basically talking about how Donald Trump will go down as pretty much the worst president of all time. And I agree 100%. When you look back at his entire presidency, his presidency is going to leave a huge stain on American democracy for the next 50 years, because the things that he has done in the 40 years he's been president are probably the most irreversible things he's done. All right. And the fact that a lot of his supporters continuously buy into his garbage really goes to show you where the state of this country is currently right now. You look back to Charlottesville incident where he refused to, condemn what the white supremacists were doing to the protesters. All right. He tried to destroy DACA, tried to build the border wall, which did not work out well. Then he tried to, cover up, his Russian involvement during the 2016 presidential elections. All right. Try to fire numerous people that were tried to, cooperate with the federal authorities in the entire investigation. He tried to, remedicate and destroy Robert Mueller's reputation. All right. And even right now, firing shots at protesters, after the death of George Floyd, you know what I'm saying? And, trying to, break up the Supreme Court to decide for the conservative party, but it didn't work out too well because this week, the Supreme Court ruled pretty much that Trump has to reveal his tax returns, which gives pretty much the New York prosecutors over there the opportunity to seize his financial records. You know what I mean? You know why he doesn't want to do it. I'm not going to go into the further details of that because of YouTube regulations. But he tried to take down DACA. That didn't work. He's now tried to, dismiss and try to, ridicule Black Lives Matter, and that's not working out either. Everything that he has done, in the 4 years, he's basically destroyed 30 years of what the country was even to begin with. And it is going to take almost 30 or even 40 years for the country to pretty much basically to redeem themselves what they allowed during the 4 years that Trump became president. He has become the worst president of all time. This surpasses what George H. Bush and George W. Bush did when they were presidents. This has made Ronald Reagan look like a saint. All right. And you know how much that kills me to even say that, because you know how terrible Ronald Reagan was. I didn't grow up in the 80s, so I don't have the first-hand knowledge of what happened during that time, but I can pretty much tell you the 80s during Reagan were pretty terrible. But this even surpasses what Nixon was doing, outside of Watergate. All right. At the end of the day, Donald Trump pretty much has just ruined this country in the worst way. You go back to that whole Tea Party thing in the early 2010s. You see how that turned out? How did that work out for them? It translated into Trump. All right. They pretty much organized that whole Tea Party thing as a response to having a black president in the White House. That's just the facts. All right. And then the biggest thing, too, the biggest thing that is pretty much hurt him the most is the whole COVID-19 pandemic. The numbers and the number of cases are continuing to rise in Arizona, in Texas, Florida, South Carolina. I mean, you name it. They're going up in basically around 30,000 of cases to 50,000 per day. I mean, it's getting worse and worse with each passing day. And you remember back in early January, that Donald Trump basically did not believe that COVID-19 existed. It was just basically a hoax. And when that thing came across, what did he do? He tried to once again try to dismiss it and try to open up the country once again because he recognizes that the economy was falling apart. Now, it was pretty much a given fact that the recession was going to happen regardless if there was no pandemic. But because of what happened in this pandemic, it has really accelerated things even further. And right now, he is basically running desperate. Don't be surprised, and I totally agree with what Questek was saying. Don't be surprised that when all of the prosecutions of a lot of the sexual assault cases, his financial fraud stuff, don't be surprised if he decides I'm gonna take a long vacation and I'm never coming back. Pretty much accepting an asylum to one of his allied countries that does business with him. Just like what everybody keeps telling you up in New York and the northeast side of the United States. Everything that Donald Trump touches turns into complete crap. The Donald Trump stakes that didn't work out. His hotels didn't work. He tried to get his hand in being a boxing promoter, and that didn't work. And he tried to oversee buying a football team from the National Football League, and the owners pretty much at that time said no, and that's what responded to the USFL, which eventually he won the lawsuit against the NFL, but in the long run, it lost a lot of money, and the league ended up falling up for at least 1 year. So that really goes to show you how horrible of a business person he is. And people will ask, like, well, why, if he's such a horrible person, why did he gain all this money and wealth? Hey, it's the way the world works, I guess. I can't explain that. It just is what it is. But the bottom line is this: Donald Trump is a racist. He's just a horrible person, and the worst part is he's just too incompetent. I've never seen a president that's way more incompetent than Donald Trump. Seriously. Now, I do have my own criticisms of Barack Obama when he was president, but the one thing I will say during that time was he was basically competent enough to understand what was the issues going on in the country. But more importantly, when the whole H1N1 pandemic went on, what did the Obama administration do? They basically created a commission to make sure that any deadly diseases would get under control. It was not big of as an issue. Yes, there were still deaths. Yes, there were still thousands of cases, but it wasn't as bad as what we're seeing right now with COVID-19. The U.S. right now is almost leading the world in terms of total cases and in the amount of deaths. We've become a laughingstock, and it's all because of what Donald Trump has done in leading the country. People don't take him seriously anymore. And I read a poll even today that 2/3 of Americans disapprove Trump basically off of the COVID-19 pandemic, which still means that there's still 37 to 33% of people that still approve him. I don't get it. It should be in the upper 90s because this guy is completely toxic to America. I can't stand him. You know what I mean? This guy never seems to stop humiliating and embarrassing himself. And I'm fully convinced he basically can go even lower, and it still won't reach to the pit of the end. This guy is going to go down as the most horrible human being on the face of this earth. He is the devil incarnate, and he's going to be remembered as the worst president of all time. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section.